morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Friday to every single body. And then we always gotta look down and see what the date is. August the 18th. I guess I do this every day. I should have it memorized by now. But nonetheless, good morning to everybody, party people in the house. It's a happy Friday. TGIF, we have made it here. We ain't going nowhere. It is time. It is time. I hope everyone's having a good week. I'm having a good week. Kids are back in school, so I'm having a really good time. I'm dropping the kids at school, or at least my oldest son at school. See my youngest son soon, and then stop, drop, and roll. Come here and do the show. But super happy to be in front of you, Rodolfo. I see you're back, Rodolfo. I saw some people looking for you yesterday, Rodolfo. I didn't see you in the chat yesterday. I started to get worried, a little nervous about you. I told people to go knock on your door, make sure you're all right. What do they call that thing when you have to go and check on someone to make sure they're all right? That proof of life kind of thing. I'm glad to see that you're amongst the land of the living, Rodolfo. Missed you yesterday. But what's going on to everybody? Justin is in here. Alan, my main man, is in here. Text guy is in here. Just a dude is in here. I see Brandon in here. SEC Matt is in here. Good morning to all you guys and ladies, because I know the ladies are in here. They don't comment as much because sometimes you guys start to become creepers and they just don't want the DMs. But nonetheless, welcome back to the old-fashioned, thank you, wellness check. With in the old-fashioned sports show. I'm your host, Anwar Richardson, and I'll be here in front of you for a few hours. What's up, Interstate? How are you doing? Haven't talked to you in a while. DWD, appreciate you coming in, and just an acknowledgement, a salute to all of y'all. CD as well. Glad to be back, man. I've got like a few topics that I got to get into, so kind of getting you guys ready for today. Steve Sarkisian is speaking and addressing the media at 11 o'clock this morning downtown. Good morning, Antonio. So because he's got to address the media at 11 o'clock, and because you guys know I live up in Cedar Park, I was going to probably have to cut it short. I've got to be able to get there. I got to be able to get to the press conference. Scrimmage is going to be tomorrow at 2:30, not open to the media, but nonetheless, the scrimmage is happening. Good morning to you, Steven. I'm knocking them all out. I'm knocking them all out. You say good morning, I'm saying good morning. That's the kind of good mood that I'm in. Good morning to you, Blake. I don't think I said good morning to you when I got on. I just started with a rant. Just an old man rant about stuff, behind the scenes stuff. But nonetheless, super happy. So like I said, about 10 o'clock, going to head out of here. But nonetheless, I'm also going to have Jeff Ketchum going to be here at 9 o'clock. Ketch and I was talking the other day. It's like, man, we don't do enough stuff together. Like, you guys are kind of used to us doing things together, and so you guys have enjoyed it. Even if you liked it to just watch it to say, man, how come Anwar never gets a chance to talk? That's what you guys would get a chance to do. Good morning, David. Thank you for coming in as well. So, and let me get to the first part of this thing. First part of the show, because I want to make sure I introduce my main man, El Presidente, to make sure that you guys know that the first part of this show is brought to you by Eric Sells Homes, DFW. If you're looking for a home in the DFW area, listen, I keep telling you, you don't have to look any further than Eric Sells Homes, DFW. He's got you covered where you want to buy a home, you want to sell a home. Hey, school's back in time and back now, right? The bidding wars are over. Go ahead and creep in and get that house that you want, live in that community that you want. You don't have to worry about going toe-to-toe with somebody. It's harder in the summer. But who's buying a house in August or September? Not too many people. You got the chance to do it with my main man Eric Sells Homes, DFW. Hit him up style, like Tupac would say, and he'll be able to take care of you. And by the way, Eric, I get to always tell you, Texas fan, Longhorn fan, don't use that against him. If you're an Aggie fan or OU fan, he'll still take care of you. Nonetheless, his wife is a TCU person, so that's a house divided. That was a really tough house for them last year. By the way, predicting 12-0. So there it is. David, good morning to you. Mark, good morning to you as well. Appreciate you guys coming in. Appreciate you guys supporting. Love to see all of it. And good morning to you, Danny, as well. So Let's part to get this thing started. I like to start with my thoughts, and like I said, I know you guys like to give me a hard time because you guys say I talk like a preacher when I try to set it up and try to set up my sermons. But I do have the Sunday pulpit, which is on Orangebloods, right? So I guess there is some of that in me. Then again, when I worked in Detroit, wrote a column called Motown Review. So it just is not always like that. But on Saturday, like I was kind of previewing as we get ready to do that. And what's going on, Mike Gooseby, my brother, the father of Trevor Gooseby, the man who, with the master plan, who is making a push right now as a freshman to be in that second string, to be a part of that top 8. Maybe he's going to get redshirted, but nonetheless, Trevor Gooseby's been doing the damn thing. I'm going to talk about him a little bit later as well. Oh, I got some Trevor takes to come. And so, Mike, don't you go anywhere. Sit down wherever you at, Mike. Wherever you in the car, this and that. You're like, hold on. Someone's going to talk about my son. Remember, I'm the first person that put that thing out there about Trevor. Whatever that's worth for you guys. It's not worth anything to anyone. But nonetheless, good to see you, and good luck to your family this season. So anyway, man, so I was thinking about, the scrimmage that's coming up on Saturday. This will be the second one of the scrimmages that they've had. Last week they had a scrimmage. This will be a scrimmage this upcoming weekend, which will start at 2:30, not open to the public or the media. But this is going to be like an important scrimmage as we kind of get closer and closer to the start of the football season. And of course, they'll have another one next week, but I think that's going to be kind of more of like a walkthrough-ish kind of thing. I'll get a little bit more to the details from Coach Sarkisian when I speak to him today at 11 o'clock down there at UT. And so, again, when I start thinking about things, I always go back in time. And I always go back to certain things that I've done and covered because I've been doing this thing for years. I've told you before, I cracked into this business in 1994 as a correspondent, doing that thing in college, and got hired for his full-time job was in January of 1997. I believe that the year Blake was born, if I'm absolutely correct. Right, Blake? But higher or lower? Higher or lower, Blake? What's he going to tell me? 98. My producer Blake was born in 1998. Listen, guys, you live long enough, eventually you're going to get old. That's just how this thing goes in life, but it's a blessing. So nonetheless, I'm a blessing. So when I covered the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for those of you that don't know, maybe new to the show, don't know much about my background or anything like that, I started off as I started off as a high school writer. I then was a boxing writer. I did hockey and I did baseball. Like I did, was a backup guy for that. But I really started getting into the business as an NFL writer. And I was an NFL writer in Tampa Bay for many years. Coach Dungy, Coach Gruden, and Raheem Morris. And so I'm taking us back to the days when I covered the Tampa Bay Buccaneers underneath Raheem Morris, who was the head coach there for about 3 years, 3 crazy years nonetheless, but it was right about 2009. And I learned a lot during that time frame of covering the team, right? It was a lot of things I learned, a lot of things I gleaned. A sidebar, I'm just going to tell you one of the best stories. This is a sidebar from where I'm at, but it's going to be a fun story nonetheless, right? And this is one thing that shaped and molded me as a reporter. It literally, as a young reporter, totally changed my perspective on how I look at things. I remember writing a story one day. I think it's long enough. I can hide the names. I remember writing a story one day, and I wrote something about Josh Freeman, who you guys remember from Kansas State, right? He was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback, right? And so when I wrote something about Josh Freeman, I said something, and it was really small, and I said something about how Josh Freeman had missed a throw. To me, it was just a throwaway line in a story that was only, 500 words or something to that effect. In the newspapers, you count by inches, but let's say it's 500 words, 600 words, or maybe somewhere in that realm, maybe 800, maybe probably 800. So I wrote something, and one of the coaches saw me about like a week later, and is like, "Hey, I saw what you wrote. You said Josh Freeman missed a throw." He goes, I want to teach you something. Because he goes, what you said was wrong. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I saw Josh Freeman miss a throw. He goes, no. So he invited me to come into the facility during a bye week. So it was just a few weeks later. He invited me on a Sunday morning. I got there about like 6:30 or so. Like it was crazy. Everyone stopped, got donuts and everything, right? So I'm like, this is fascinating. I'm just gonna see like what this person is gonna teach me as a reporter, right? And this is something for you guys to learn as well, right? This is I know it's total sidebar, and I'm gonna get back to where I'm at, but I actually just want to share this because I think it's a really cool story. And so, in any case, so I go in there and I'm like, what is this guy gonna show me? And what he does is he shows me the play, right? And so he shows me a cut up. So it'll be how the St. Louis Rams ran that play, right? It'll be like how the Oakland Raiders ran that particular play. It'd be how the New England Patriots ran that particular play. And this is what they would show the team, right? He would show me that same play. So let's just say it's like a 5 yard, let's say it's a 7 yard out, something to that effect. Just something simple. And so it's 7 yard out. So he would show it to me, and then on practice how they ran it on Wednesday, 7 yard out, right? He would show me on practice on Thursday how they ran it, same play, right? Then he would show me like Friday, and then they showed me like even the walkthrough at the hotel ballroom or out in the field, right? Then he would show me that play in the game. And then when he showed me that play in the game, instead of the receiver doing what he's supposed to do, the receiver like went straight, and all of a sudden it gets an interception. And he showed me this play after play. And so from that, I realized that if you don't know what the play call is, when you judge an athlete, you really don't know what you're talking about. That's why coaches always say that I got to go back and look at the film. Because when they say they got to look at the film, what they really got to figure out is what was the play call, and then who did he run the wrong route, or did the quarterback do the wrong thing? Same thing for offensive line. We start talking about the blocking, and you can say, "Oh, guy missed the block." Did he miss the block, or did he do his assignment and somebody else missed it? It helps with our critiques when we start critiquing football players. Like, what did it, and we say, man, they did this wrong, they did that wrong, they did this wrong, they did that wrong. It's like, did they do something wrong? Or the person you're critiquing or criticizing, they did it right and someone else did it wrong. Anyway, that was a sidebar. It just took me back to those days, right? So nonetheless, Raheem Morris, when he was there, he used to have this saying when he took over as a coach, right? And his saying would be, "I'll tolerate them until I can replace them." And they had knuckleheads who were on the team. You have knuckleheads on every football team, right? But that was always his thing. I'll tolerate them until I can replace them, right? And so what you see that often happens is that when coaches take over, that they're always trying to find like their guys, right? They're always trying to find their guys. And so we see like, hey, don't tolerate them until they can replace them. Some of you people are coaches, on different levels. And you know what it's like when you take over a team or you're a part of a team and you just don't have the guys that you want. And you just thinking, man, I just got to get through. And then when I can find my folks, I can do it. You see it in AAU basketball. Like my kid plays AAU basketball, and coaches are like, I'm dealing with this team. But boy, when I can get my people and recruit them in here, all of a sudden, I'll work with this. But I can't wait to be there. And Rodolfo, yes, that is Trevor Goosby's dad in the chat. Absolutely. That's what you're here for. He's in here. Who's our other guy that Severell's dad? He's usually in the chat. He's not around this week, but he'll be back next week. But these guys are always around here, and it's kind of things what they do, right? So tolerate them till they replace them, right? It's kind of what's been going on with Steve Sarkisian when he took over for Tom Herman's team, right? Everything has been about, hey, I'm going to tolerate them until I replace them. We saw that happen with Tom Herman, right? Tom Herman got in here. He had battles with guys, and they didn't get along. You remember Papa Foreman, rest in peace, used to get on Twitter and just bash Tom Herman in the program, right? And you had other parents who would kind of do the same, right? And that the staff used to think, man, we're just going to tolerate them until we can replace them. Like that was always kind of the thing, right? And so we saw it happen here when Steve Sarkisian gets here. He's like, man, it's not the way I would construct this roster. It's not the way I would work with this thing. And I will put up with these guys that I have until I can replace them and find the guys that they want. And what we have seen from a recruiting perspective, especially over the last two cycles, it has been Steve Sarkisian bringing in guys, bringing in dudes. Like he's been bringing in the Goosebys of the world. He's brought in obviously the Archers of the world. Like we're going to go down the list of guys. And then where we're at is at a place where we start thinking about the scrimmage on Saturday. There's a lot of folks, especially some older folks, who are going to feel some pressure. And there's especially some older folks who are going to start feeling the heat. Because when those younger folks start bringing it, good morning to you, Chris, when those younger folks start bringing it, and they have been in this camp in particular, more so than ever, when we start talking about the youth invasion that is occurring, sure, there's going to be a lot of veterans, of course. But I don't know the last time we have seen such a talented group of young Longhorns that are just nipping at the heels to get in. But when you look at this team and you say to yourself, man, God forbid someone needs to miss a game for a flu, right? We're going to do that, right? That's our new thing going forward, right? We're not going to say injuries because I know we're not going to speak that out in the atmosphere. But God forbid someone needs to miss a game because they're sick or they got the flu and they just can't travel, they can't play. Beforehand, we will look at this thing and say to ourselves, boy, this thing is absolutely going off the rails. Like, what are you going to do? And now we look at this thing totally differently. Now we look at this thing like, man, if such and such can't play, there's probably not going to be a huge drop-off. You're probably not really worried about a major drop-off, quite honestly, at any position that's out there. Maybe quarterback. Quarterback might be the only one you say to yourself, I don't know what would happen if Quinn missed the game because of the flu. I don't know about Malik and Arch and who would do what, right? But nonetheless, you still don't feel like, man, we just falling off a cliff. Like this, you just think like, okay, you still feel like you have a chance, which says a lot about what Steve Sarkisian has been able to do. And it talks a lot about what he's been able to do for the recruiting process. So Stanley, go ahead. I know you got this thing started off with a super chat. So let's go ahead and do this thing, Stanley. Good morning to you, sir. Let's see what Stanley said. He goes, I'm making it rain because I'm a high roller. Here's $1 to $1.99. Whoa, Stanley. But first and foremost, listen. $2 is $2. You know what this? You know what that $2 is? It's $2 more than we had. There's listen. Here's my whipping boy. If you gave Elon Musk $2, you think he's gonna say I don't want that? So you know what? I'm not looking down at your $2. And Stanley, let me tell you like this. I saw this thing it was like sometime this year, and it was like Ocho Cinco, and he took a woman out on the first date, and he took her out to McDonald's, and she said that was kind of his test to see how she was going to react, and she was like, "Oh snap! Like I will absolutely order this. I wanted this, this, and that," and he's like, "That's why I knew like she would be the person for me." Now, to be fair, this woman knew that Ocho Cinco had money, so she probably had to play the game anyway. But what I'm saying is, Stanley, if someone looks down at the money, then they're probably not the person. So I'm the money. Thank you for making it rain. And guess what? If 100 other people want to go ahead and make it rain with $2, you can do that as well. 142 people in the chat. Please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the young people who are pressing, and I mean absolutely pressing to get in, to be in that too deep, to be a part of maybe a starter. There's some battles that we need to watch. There's a youth invasion going on here in Austin. We're going to talk about this thing in just 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback focuses on one of the biggest UT football stars of the last decade. Bijan Robinson was a 5-star prospect by rivals when he signed with the Longhorns, finishing as the nation's number 18 overall prospect, the second best prospect in the state of Arizona, and the number 1 running back in the country, according to Rivals.com. Upon retrospect, it's kind of amazing that former running backs coach Stan Drayton was able to land Robinson when you consider that Ohio State was perceived as a massive leader center for much of his recruitment. In fact, on the day he committed, Rivals.com recruiting analyst Adam Gorney told Orangebloods, quote, "Even after the Atlanta 5-star challenge, it almost felt like Ohio State was the foregone winner," Gorney said that day. But as it got closer, I think the realization that he would basically be going across the country to play football kind of set in. He really, really liked Texas and USC a lot, had connections to both schools, liked the staffs, and how they would use him, and wound up finding a school closer to home that he was very happy with. It wasn't until Robinson visited Texas on an unofficial visit for the spring game in April that Texas began to make it surge. By the time June rolled around, a couple of months later, the Longhorns had emerged as a team to beat in his recruitment. Robinson was a part of a 2020 recruiting class that finished 14th in the nation that year in the Rivals.com rankings, and what turned out to be the final full recruiting class for Tom Herman. A few years later, and there's not a ton of meat on the bone with respects to the elite prospects from that year outside of Robinson. Jake Majors and Jaron Thompson remain as a few of the higher ranked players in that class, but it's actually two of the lower ranked prospects in the class, Jahdae Barron and Jalen Ford, that have made the biggest impact as the class begins to wrap up its contribution to the Texas football program.
Welcome back. So let's get into some of the battles that are going to occur, kind of some of the final battles that we're going to see this upcoming weekend. And again, like there'll still be a little bit of time left, but what Sarkisian kind of made clear is that this Saturday, this scrimmage, this kind of ends up being like the depth chart kind of deciding thing. Like that, this is where they'll know. This is kind of like it. This is kind of like the final audition. And for the most part, the scrimmage will play a part, and it'll play a part for those who are kind of on the fence. You know, so those on the outside potentially looking in, it's going to be that thin margin. It's going to be major for some, because once you put it in ink, like then you start going forward, and that becomes like, all right, you are, on the 2 deep, you're on the scout team. Like everybody kind of assumes their roles as they kind of go into the season. So that's what's going to make Saturday kind of a huge day for a lot of people. So we'll start. I'm going to start with good morning, Robert. Yes, as many $2 as it takes to get my son to Paris. We will absolutely take it. So let's talk about so I'm going to talk about battles, but then I'm also going to talk about individuals, right? So we'll do both, okay? And by the way, get your buy or sell questions in the chat now, so we'll make sure I can get to those hopefully within the next like 15 minutes or so. So go ahead and get buy or sell questions. Please put those things in the chat because I will definitely be answering all your Longhorn questions, the things that you may have. And you guys have been asking good questions this week. Been super excited about the questions y'all been asking this week. So please buy or sell, get those things in there. So this becomes, let's start with the first one. And it's the easiest one to talk about, which of course we got to talk about the battle, obviously, between Malik and Arch. Now, because of how football coaches are, and because of how they usually formulate their practices and how they usually have their thought processes, usually one practice, even though it's a scrimmage, usually one practice doesn't usually make the difference between who's going to be what on a depth chart. They usually try to say that, all right, that happened once. So overall, obviously, Malik Murphy has been the number 2 guy throughout this offseason. Number 2 guy heading into the spring practice, number 2 guy coming outside of it, number 2 throughout the summer, and of course, number 2 in training camp. But, and there's a but there, but Steve Sarkisian has made it pretty clear that Arch Manning is coming and that Arch Manning is playing well. Now, and listen, Arch played well. We know in the past scrimmage, we've heard it's already become the folklore of him running 20 miles an hour, right? I mean, which makes me wonder, like, I wonder if I could hit like 6, which I would never run, by the way, because these knees would just not make it past like 5 yards. So we won't even do that. I wouldn't put that on myself, Ricky Bobby. But nonetheless, we've heard a lot about Arch, and we've heard about what he's been able to do. So I think a couple of things as relates to the Arch conversation. I do believe, one, that he is playing well because I've heard it from multiple sources, and they felt like Arch has looked like kind of just a normal kid who's just out of high school for most of the offseason. In the last like week and a half or so, that he's looked like next level. Like it's been like, whoa, like about 2 weeks. Like this guy has really been on a high plateau. It's like the things are clicking. You know, people I'm talking to say he's just feeling more comfortable. He understands it better now. Like because of those things, that's why all of a sudden we're hearing the name Arch. Now, I still believe there's a part of this whole thing where I'm just like, all right, is Sark just really saying this in order to push Malik? You know what I'm saying? Like, is he just saying this in order to just kind of just like light a fire under Malik and keep him going and keep that motivation going? Like there is a part of me that does wonder, like, is this just like some little Jedi mind trick that he's playing with everyone? We'll find out this upcoming weekend, but it does become that thing. Like I think when it's all said and done, we'll just see. We'll absolutely just see. I think when it's all said and done, my money would be on my $2. If I got my $2 that I just got in the super chat and I had to place it on another bet, my money will be that Malik will be the backup, because I think it just does craziness. I think it does a lot of damage if you have Arch as the number 2. Like, I just think the risk of like, okay, well, I think at that point, you're just telling Malik like, hey, it's just not going to work for you here at Texas. So by the time the season's over, feel free to go ahead and, bounce like that. That's what I think the message becomes. But at the end of the day, I got to see what Sark does. Like, if he just says like, hey, that's my guy, then okay, that's where it is. I don't think that's what he's going to do. I'd be shocked if that's the road where he's going through. But nonetheless, here's the main thing. If you're Malik and you've heard nothing but positive things about Arch over the last 2 weeks, and all you've heard about is how you need to be more consistent and you got to play a little bit better consistently, and you're hearing more stuff like, yeah, he's doing good. But then if you're Malik, you got to tell yourself, all right. You can't be at the stage where you're forcing it this weekend, but you got to sling it this weekend. Like, you've got to sling that thing. You got to tote that rock. You got to do those things to make sure, like, hey, like I said, Roy Jones Jr., y'all must have forgot. Like, that's exactly what he's got to do to make sure and say, like, okay, cool, young buck, I appreciate you and I appreciate what you're doing and I appreciate the competition, but let me go ahead and solidify this thing and solidify myself within this and solidify my spot at least as a number 2 guy, because at least as a number 2 guy, I'm always one whatever away from getting in. You don't want to fall behind. So that's kind of the thing that I look at as relates to that kind of that battle there. There's another one. There's another one that's so interesting to follow. Another one that I'm fascinated with. And that's been the rise of CJ Baxter. And look, I get it. When CJ gets here, you don't want to pump up a freshman too much. And they had a lot of people who were kind of in that battle. So, you still have the Jonathan Brooks. And, of course, you still had your Jaden Blue. Savion Red was a part of it, at one point. Of course, Keelan Robinson is in there. So you felt like, hey, that you have a lot of dudes who are battling for this position or the positions. And as we kind of seen this thing kind of unfold, clearly Jonathan Brooks has come back and he's emerged and he's the number 1 guy. That's that seems to be his spot. I don't think there's any question about that. Question is really who's going to be the number 2. And really, since a little bit before the scrimmage, when CJ Baxter starts getting first team reps, up until now, where I've been hearing like there's a real possibility that this could be a 1-2 combo, if it's going to be Jonathan Brooks and CJ Baxter. Jonathan Brooks, I'm just using it for namesake. I'm not using it for a comparison of skill set by any stretch of imagination. But Jonathan Brooks being the Bijan of the season, and of course CJ Baxter being the Roshan of the season. Again, not comparing skill sets. Please don't say on social media that Anwar compared Jonathan Brooks to Bijan Robinson. Don't do that. Don't do that to the kid. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's what they're looking like from the 1-2 combo. So then what does that mean, and how does that affect everything in the room? Because I think Keelan Robinson still serves the purpose of the role that he was in last season, which, he comes in on certain downs, use him on passing downs, like something to that effect. But when you're looking for the number 2 ball carrier, I don't think Keelan Robinson ends up being your number 2 ball carrier. It's going to be who's left. And CJ Baxter is the person that's making that mark. CJ Baxter is the person that you look at and you say, all right, he's the person to keep an eye on. He's the person that absolutely has got this shot. And so if you are Jaden Blue and you were the person that had that position in the spring, and you were the person that everyone was saying you were getting first team reps, and you were that guy, when I start talking about these young guys are coming, CJ Baxter is coming. And that's where, like, a guy like Jaden Blue, he's got to assert himself. He's got to reassert himself, to be quite honest with you, in order to make sure he locks down that number 2 position, because CJ Baxter is here. CJ Baxter is 100% here. And by the way, just throwing this out there, we also have heard the name Trey Wisner. Now, I told you guys, and I kind of reported it from the weekend, like, hey, Trey Wisner is doing well. What did you hear Sark say not too long after that? Yeah, Trey Wisner is actually impressed. They talked about Trey Wisner impressing and how good he's looking, not only as a running back, but on special teams. And so, look, if you're a freshman and you've got that opportunity to make it on special teams, especially the way they value special teams around here, Trey Wisner is that person that all of a sudden, sometimes that new is that thing that everybody is like, ooh, I got, this is that new shiny toy. I almost went into a really, really a horrible place as far as comparison goes. So when I said new, everybody who knows where I was about to go knows, like, ooh, thank God Anwar didn't go there. If this had been a late night show, nonetheless, Trey Wisner is a guy to keep an eye on and see what we hear about him from the scrimmage. Another person that has been really, really impressive, the name that we're hearing a lot of, is Gunnar Helm. And the light's clicking on some of you. Some of you, it'll go over your head, and that's okay. Gunnar Helm is a person that we've been hearing a lot of, a name that we've been hearing a lot of lately. He's a person that, for him, a good scrimmage kind of like solidifies where he's at. Like, a good scrimmage is just, it's kind of like that ribbon and bow for him having, oh, snap. Blake, guess who's back? Barry Sorrell is back. So right now, we got Barry Sorrell is in the house. I've got Mike Gooseby in the house. Like, we are getting live on a Friday, so I'm really appreciative. Barry, it's good to see you back. Of course, 88 is great, and I know you got 10 sacks on it. So I want to see Barry. He's like, I ain't got 5 on it anymore. I've got 10 on it, and I'm totally happy with that as well. Good to see you back as well. So Gunnar Helm has been a person who's had an ascent, right? Gunnar Helm is a person that we've seen starting to kind of hit that, like, next level, where not only we're hearing the practice reports about him, players are talking about him, and then Sarkisian is talking about him. We've also heard a little bit about the freshmen and how the freshman tight ends, Spencer Sanders, Will Randall, like, we've heard about that. That means anybody else in that room, this is it. This is it. Hey, Juan Davis, this is it. You've got to do it. It's got to happen this weekend. It's had to happen this week, but it has to happen this weekend. because these young guys are coming. Gunnar Helm's coming. These young freshmen are coming. They signed 2 of them. And so these are the guys that, big scrimmage for these young guys pushes an older guy to the side. And look, it's football. That happens. And guess what? It happens everywhere. So it's no disrespect if it doesn't happen here, then you just go somewhere else and you make it happen there. And sometimes you need a fresh start. Sometimes you need a fresh set of eyes. And those things, hey, look, if you get that, it's all good. But yeah, when I look at that tight end position, again, a good one for Gunnar Helm. It's a good thing for him. Now, here is the battle. Here is the battle that one of my sources told me about this yesterday. My sources told me about this yesterday, and I found this thing to be fascinating. And this is the battle that we got to keep an eye on this upcoming weekend. This is it. This is it. You want to know what the title fight looks like? What are the title fights? And I know if you want to say Malik versus Arch is the main event, well, this is the co-main event, right here. Barry and Mike, I'll hook you guys up. I'll send you guys a group text. But here's the co-main event. Here's the co-main event right here. Malik Muhammad versus Terrence Brooks. Yes, that's the co-main. Malik Muhammad versus Terrence Brooks. And here's the thing. What's crazy about it is both guys have been playing extremely well. So this is not one of those things where you're telling to yourself okay, Terrence Brooks is, not doing what he needs to do. And so that's no. By no stretch of the imagination is that being said or uttered by anyone I've spoken to, by anyone behind the scenes, anyone at practice, anything to that effect. That is not it. Terrence Brooks has been doing what he needs to do. The thing is that Malik Muhammad is coming. And Malik Muhammad is doing some things that most folks have not expected him to do. And again, you know he's got the talent. You understand that he's got the talent. But when you go on a scrimmage and you're that person that ends up creating the turnovers that he was able to create, getting the interception and getting a pick six will always catch everyone's attention, right? If you're a DB and you get a pick six, that will catch everybody's attention. So you're able to do that. Then he forces a fumble on Jatavian Sanders, which Leona Lafau recovers. And now all of a sudden they're looking at him and saying, no, we need to see more. Before we make any decisions as relates to these two, let this thing play out because these guys are both balling. This is one of those fights where you look at it and there's sluggers. You ever see one of those boxing matches where no one has defense and everyone is like a Ward Gotti kind of fight where everyone is just trying to hit the other person? That's what this thing looks like. And here's the thing. It's a positive for you guys. This is a positive thing because this ain't a winner by default. No, this is a winner because that person went and did the damn thing. Malik Muhammad, Terrence Brooks, I'm telling you, you'll hear about it over the weekend, and someone eventually do. That's your co-main. That Arch and Malik, that's your main. This is your co-main. Keep an eye on that one. And I absolutely agree with you, Brandon. Malik should have been a 5-star. Malik Muhammad should have been a 5-star. And he's showing why he should have been a 5-star because he's making plays in practice. That's how good he is. That's how impactful he is. So like I said, we'll keep an eye on that. And by the way, keep your buy or sell questions coming in. I see them coming in and just keep those things coming in. I'm going to get to those things in a few, but I'm going to break down kind of a few more of some of these battles that are here before I get into the buy or sell. I don't know. Jeff Ketch was supposed to join me at 9:00, but I have not heard from him. So let's Ketch is good for 9. Okay, good. So I've got some more position battles. I just want to make sure that he's good and make sure there's no problems. I always get a little paranoid behind the scenes here. So I'll talk one more. And I got some more because I got Gooseby in here. All right, just because Gooseby is in here, and I know he's there, I want to mention him. I want to mention him right now. I'll just get this in here. One thing that I want to monitor as well this upcoming weekend has been the rise of Trevor Gooseby. Now, see, when we think about some of these offensive linemen, right, I think it's so easy. We talk about the guys like DJ Campbell, who deserves all the praise in the world for everything that he's done. And, of course, his ascent this offseason. We've seen that with a guy like a DJ Campbell, and he deserves all the praise for what he's been able to do. And then clearly, Kelvin Banks is Kelvin Banks, right? Somebody calls him, one person that I know is a friend of mine calls him Mr. All-American. Well, damn it, he is Mr. All-American. He's Mr. Perfect. He is Mr. Wonderful. I mean, he's the $1 million man, Ted DiBiase. I mean, whatever reference that you want to know, he's Kelvin the Giant, whatever. He's the macho man, Kelvin Banks. Like, he's all that. The Earth, Moon, and Stars, all that. He deserves all the praise before he is future first-round pick. And then people looked at this class, right? And the class of the offensive lineman that came a year before, people kind of looked at it and was like, that is the creme de la creme. And people kind of looked at this class and then go, well, okay, that was cool. That's all right. You know, let those guys come in, back down to reality. And what we have seen has been an emergence of at least one young man, Trevor Goosby, who's been all of a sudden getting a lot of second team reps. Now, this past week, there was kind of a little bit of a split with him and Cam Williams as far as that backup left tackle position. Cam Williams appears to be the guy that if anybody has to miss a flu game, Cam Williams is the guy that comes in. But if you're Trevor Goosby, you need another good scrimmage and put another one of those in the books where people in that staff says, you know what? He's a guy that we can rely on. He's a guy not only, you get the attention. It's like stocking it up, and you now all of a sudden become like in the in crowd, and you become like part of the people or part of that 8 where they feel really good about. You become the person that they now look into, not only the now, but the future. So keeping that momentum going, maybe not the person who's going to start, but keeping that momentum going is going to be, I think, really key for him, key for what he's been, the progress that he's made. And then to keep that thing going forward, yeah, this is a big one for him. This is an absolute big one for him. And again, there's a flu game. You put a Cam Williams in, then you start looking down, and you got to say, like, who I need to be? And even so, you think about, hey, who has a chance to play against Rice? Who has a chance to play against Wyoming? Getting on that depth chart. So it's a big one for Trevor. And I want to put that in there. So, because I wanted to make sure I hit him because I have a break coming up. I want to get to your buy or sell questions. Ketch is going to be here. So I think I'll kind of transition some of my other things into some of our conversations as well. And yes, Mike, I know that he is an 18-year-old kid. You told him to follow Kelvin and he can't go wrong. Well, yeah, he's 18, but he's still good. You know what it is? You know what it is, Mike, though? You are like every other parent, right? And I do this as well as a parent. You always will look at your child as your child. And it's sometimes hard to look at them as anything other than like your child. So you always look at him like, man, he's just 18. He's just little. He's this, and that. And everyone's like, no, he's pretty damn good. Like, and it's not to set the expectations high. It's going to be a start. But I look at my kids sometimes. And again, here's a kid that, yeah, right. Someone's like, Kelvin's 19. Correct, right? And so the age ain't the thing. He's a baller, and he'll get there. I look at my kids sometimes. I'm like, he's just a little child, but then other people look at him as something special. So just get that and the expectations. All right, let's do this. Because I got a lot more topics I don't want to get into. We've got some daddies in the house. We got Mr. Goosby in the house. We got Mr. Sorrell. He's in the house. There's probably some other parents that are in the house as well. So let me go ahead and do a quick pause. We're getting into your buy or sell. Ketch is coming up at 9 o'clock. He and I are going to talk probably about more position battles. We'll probably recap some of the other ones. We'll get into that. So I'm getting hyped. I'm getting excited. My energy is picking up. So you guys don't go anywhere. Go to the bathroom at most. But keep this thing on here. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done that. Be right back.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback takes a look at a player that was the first commitment of the TCU class of 2020 and became the last signee of the Texas 2020 recruiting class, with a little stopover in Waco in between. That's right, Texas senior defensive back Jahdae Barron had one hell of a recruitment before eventually developing into one of the most important remaining players from a somewhat disastrous 2020 recruiting class. For those that might not remember, Barron finished as a mid 3-star prospect in the Rivals.com rankings while finishing 79th in the state and 72nd in the country as a cornerback. Should note for the record that I had Barron ranked as a 4-star prospect in my rankings and the number 30 overall prospect in the state. When we look at his recruitment, things really started to heat up following a junior day visit in February of 2019 to TCU and Gary Patterson. After visiting on the junior day in February, Barron committed just a couple of weeks later, citing that Patterson's track record of developing players was a big reason for his decision. Yet a little more than a month later, Barron backed out of his commitment to Patterson, primarily because his offer list started to take off shortly after his commitment, with the likes of Oklahoma State, Tennessee, and Arizona jumping into the mix. Before his decommitment, he actually took an unofficial visit to the 40 acres, although the Longhorns didn't offer. Fast forward to June 22nd, and Barron announced his commitment to Baylor. From that moment on, all the way through the rest of signing day, Barron was solid as a rock to the Bears, even in the aftermath of the departure of Baylor head coach Matt Rule. Things changed for Barron in April as he asked for Baylor to release him from his national letter of intent. Quote, "Thank you to the Baylor Nation for embracing me," he said on Twitter. "Today, I requested an official release from my NLI to Baylor and will begin looking for a new school to pursue my athletic dreams and career goals." 8 days later, Barron committed to Tom Herman's Texas Longhorns. Flipping Barron was a huge win for defensive backs coach Jay Valai, who had only been in Austin for a few months when he landed Barron. Barron was the 20th and final signee to a 2020 recruiting class that finished 16th in the nation. While Bijan Robinson is famously remembered as the headliner of the class, Barron was one of the 3 lowest rated prospects in the entire group, according to Rivals.com. Of the 2 players ranked lower than Barron, one of them was none other than All-America linebacker Jalen Ford.
Yeah, what's up? Welcome back. I was listening to that. Ketch did a good job, though. Ketch did a really good job. I can't wait to, man, Jay Valai coaches at OU. I don't really want to give that guy no credit for you guys. I don't want to give him no credit. I don't want to give him any credit. He did do a good job when he was here, though. So that portion cannot be denied, though. But every time when I hear it, I'm like, nah. That's the Texas OU thing. It's 8 for you guys. I know it's 8:49 a.m. and you guys can finish the rest. All right, we've got some buyer sales that are here. We got some buyer sales that are in the house. We got Mr. Gooseby talking about his baby, those 300 pounds. Like it was like that's my baby. He's 6'7". What they got listed at? Hold on. What they got listed at? They got him listed at 6'7". So he's at 280. They say 285, but he's like 300. So he's like, hey man, just remember he's my 18-year-old baby. Your baby can lift a car. Like, will you stop? Will you stop that? Ridiculous. Talking about my baby. Okay. C. Jones is here. How are you? Good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. I appreciate your questions in the chat as always, C. Jones. Buy or sell? The offensive line has the potential to be the best O-line since the 05 team. Buy. Absolutely, I'm gonna, buy that. And I know that I get the historical reference, but first and foremost, you tell me. I don't think there's going to be an offensive line that's better than this in the Big 12. Right? So I don't believe there's that. I don't know if there's going to be an offensive line that's better than this in the majority of the nation. You look at this offensive line, how many future NFL players are out there, right? You look at Christian Jones, future NFL player, DJ Campbell, future NFL player, Christian Jones. I don't know if he gets drafted, but I know he'll at least be on an NFL roster. That's at least three. No, from a backup perspective, and again, I don't know what happens with a Hayden Connor. I'm not quite sure about that, but I know Cam Williams is a future NFL guy for sure. I can guarantee you on that one. He's going to check all the boxes, and then we'll see what happens with some of the other guys that are there. So yeah, I like this. Definitely has the potential to be one of the best offensive lines in the wild. I think Kyle Flood as is shown and proven throughout his history throughout history that he can grow and develop guys into NFL talent like that. That is not any question at all. So yeah, I'm with you. I'll buy 100%. On that. Now, does that 100% lead to the team success? Clearly, there's going to be other factors involved in that. But when you talk about when's the last time you felt like you've had an offensive line that was 8 deep and you felt good that if you had to go to the bench? I can tell you, not since I've been here. I can't think of 1 year since I've been here when I was said, "Oh man, this thing is stacked." Every time I've been here for all my years, I've said, "Man, God forbid someone gets hurt." Because you remember Connor Williams got hurt, and I was like, "Woo!" Now Texas got lucky with the Sam Cosmi situation, but Connor Williams got hurt, and I was like, "Man, So no, I'm 100% with you. Best offensive line, yes, since '05, absolutely, hands down. Great buy. Thank you, C. Jones, for asking the question. Brandon Storer, good morning to you. Buy or sell Hudson Card finds success at Purdue. Well, let me think of what our definition of success is, because clearly we know he's going to be a starter, so we know that. I'll buy it. Now, success to me doesn't necessarily mean he evolves into a draft pick or anything to that effect. I think Hudson Card will be a serviceable slash good college football player, but there's still the jury's still out though on Hudson Card. It just is. The same way the jury will still be out on Casey Thompson at this point. And I don't know what success at Florida Atlantic means for a guy like Casey Thompson. I don't know what that constitutes when you're playing that level of competition. But Hudson Card probably has some sort of success. I mean, he's emerged into a starter. He's going to be one of their team leaders. I'm sure he's going to be successful. I don't see him competing for a Heisman. I don't see him as a draft pick or anything like that. But do I see him kind of having a good run there at Purdue? Like, absolutely. Now, if he exceeds all that, more power to him. I'm happy for him. But yeah, Brandon, I think he has a good year. I don't think he has a year, by the way, where it's going to make you regret the decision that he transferred. So just so we're clear, I don't think we're going to look back and say, "Damn, he was so much better than Quinn." Like that, I don't believe. But can he be successful where he's at? Sure, absolutely, 100%. I'll give you that one. Give me another one. What's going on? Good morning to you, Don. How are you doing? Hope all is going well in your world. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Don asked me, this team has buy or sell. This team has the depth to still win the Big 12, even if they sustain injuries, including Ewers. This is a really, really good question. I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell on that one. Because if you tell me Quinn gets hurt, I can't guarantee you what's going to come after him. Like that's kind of like my game. That's my struggle. Like most positions, I would feel very, very good at. I feel very good if it's running back, receivers, tight end. You can work around the tight end, defensive line. I feel good about those things. Linebacker. All of that. I feel pretty good. I mean, maybe I don't know if I feel good about kicker. But or even punter, to be honest with those. I don't know how I feel good. I wouldn't feel good about either one of those kind of being gone. But well, punter more so than anything else. But Ewers, like, no, like I don't, because now I have to tell myself that a young player, whether it's a true freshman in Arch or it's a second-year player Malik, a person who's never played in a college game, will have the ability to carry this team all the way forward without having any sort of drop off at all. And I don't know if that's possible. Like a freshman's still going freshman. Like that's just what it is. Like you got to expect a freshman to grow and learn and develop and have all kinds of different issues and growing more pains. So no, I'd have to sell if Quinn for some reason got hurt. Then yeah, I think that's kind of a tough part. I think it's a tough sledding, for Texas the rest of the way. Text guy 2, good morning, my dude. Buy so this is the best season of Sark's career as a head coach. I'll buy that. First, I mean, look, 9 is the most amount of wins he's had in his career. So if we go through 9 and I'm predicting 10, then yes, I believe 10, that's where I want to stay, with 10. Then sure, I believe this will be the best season of Sark's career for all those reasons involved. And again, the building, from there. And I think hopefully they'll have a little bit better wins. And I think, Sark, he's got to have that signature win at Texas. I think Alabama gives him the opportunity to have that signature win, to kind of put that flag in there when we start having the Texas is back kind of conversation. Alabama puts that flag in the ground for you to finally say like Texas is back and actually believe it. So yeah, I think this is the best year, but he's got all the talent in the world. And it's one of those things that if it doesn't happen, then we're going to look to ourselves and say to ourselves, this is one of the most disappointing years of Sark's career. Like that's the flip side, right? Because if something's going to be here, then the opposite must be true, right? So this should be the best season of his career. But if it doesn't meet the expectations that the majority of us have, then it'll be one of the more disappointing seasons of his career. But we're not going to speak that on it because we want to have good, positive shows going forward, because I don't want none of that smoke for none of you guys if this thing goes off the rails. But good question, text guy. I hope you are doing incredibly well. Eric Hart, who I joked was the cousin of Kevin Hart. Eric Hart asks, buy or sell? If the wins come this year, 2 assistant coaches get new jobs. Buy. So one of the things that I learned, and I've said this before, and I'll reiterate it, is that Coach Dungy used to always say the signs of a healthy staff is that when the assistant coaches are being promoted to be coordinators and coordinators are being talked about or being promoted to be head coaches. And so far, what have you seen from Sarkisian and his staff? You've seen Stan Drayton go and become the head coach over at Temple, shows health, right? And then you saw the receivers coach went to UNLV, blanking on his name right now. Too many names going around in this old Brendan Marion. Thank you. Got it. Brendan Marion gets promoted and becomes an offensive coordinator, right? So again, that's the sign of health. Healthy staffs do that. When you look at the previous staffs that have been here, you didn't see guys getting promoted. Just didn't happen. You did see guys leaving the previous staffs, whether it was Herman or Strong's, and getting promoted or elevated. Like that's the sign of health. When you look at these things like the Alabama staff, the Bill Belichick staffs, where you start talking about coaching trees and things to that effect, that's what happens. So if he has that success, and so far we've seen it, then yes, that he has that'll be the opportunity that lies ahead for definitely some of these coaches that are there. Go ahead and give me a couple more, Blake, as Ketch goes ahead and gets settled in. We got plenty of time. Stephen Baker says, buy or sell? We have 1,000-yard rusher and receiver this season. I'll buy on both of those, Stephen. I'll buy on Jonathan Brooks getting over 1,000. I'll buy on Xavier Worthy getting over 1,000 as well. So yeah, I'm buying both of those stocks for both of those guys. I can definitely see that kind of success going forward. Mike Gooseby asks, well, this would be interesting. Buy or sell? The D-line takes over games with the four-man rotations. Yes, I'll buy that. Look, we saw the D-line take over against Alabama last season. That happened. We can't act like it didn't. So yeah, we've seen this D-line rise up and really take over games. Now, 4 quarters to be able to do that consistently. Again, my thing is getting up for Bama is not the challenge, I think, for Texas. Texas is going to get up for Bama, so I'm not worried about that at all. My concerns are the other games. where these quote unquote sneaky games in the Big 12, the Baylors of the world, the Texas Techs of the world, like all those games that are kind of in between. I know they'll get it for Oklahoma, but what about the in between game? What about TCU? And I don't know. And so, yes, can the D line take over against it? Like, again, doing certain things like that. And I know they limited TCU pretty well. That kind of becomes my thing. Let's do one more. And then we'll go ahead and do a quick pause, and then I'll bring in Ketch. But Ryan asks, Ryan Watts makes the all Big 12 team this year. Sure, absolutely. Ryan Watts is a future NFL player, future NFL draft pick. So he will absolutely be able to do that. And Ryan asks about KU. Sure, KU is a team that, yes, Texas is going to be prepared for, like, especially if the quarterback is healthy. So, yes, 100%. All right, let's do this. Let's do a quick pause, real quick pause, Blake. And then we'll come back in 2 minutes, and then we're going to get in Ketch. And he and I are going to do some kind of, I guess, retro K&A on a Friday.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback takes a look back at the single lowest rated recruit of the 2020 recruiting class and one of the 5 lowest rated position players that the Longhorns have signed in the last 5 recruiting cycles. That's right, I'm talking about senior All-American linebacker Jalen Ford, a lowly 3-star prospect who ranked as the number 127th ranked player in the state of Texas per Rivals. Yeesh. Ford's recruitment began in earnest in the spring of 2019 when he picked up 16 offers by the end of May, including Power 5 offers from the likes of Kansas, Minnesota, Utah, and Texas Tech. Still, the recruiting services paid him no attention. After taking unofficial visits to Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Hawaii, Ford took his first official visit to Texas Tech in late May. Quote, "This is my only official visit for the summer," Ford said at the time. "I'm looking to visit Washington State and Utah early in the season, so maybe I'll be ready around September, then make a decision and announce my commitment shortly after that." True to his word, the trip to Utah proved to be a game changer for Ford as he committed to the Utes on October 8th of his senior season, right after taking his official visit to see the Utes. Very quietly, though, the Longhorns became involved in his recruitment a month later. After Texas assistant coach Tim Beck visited Ford at his high school, Tom Herman called him a week later to offer a scholarship. Ford did a good job of keeping the news of Texas's interest under wraps. In fact, in early December, Ford told Orangebloods that he hadn't even been talking to the Texas staff. At the time, Lone Star was alive in the Texas State playoffs, and Ford said he wanted to remain focused on his team's playoff run. Once Lone Star season came to an end on December 14th, Ford began to focus on his upcoming decision, and he finalized the decision to commit to Texas a week later. "It was really right before I was going to sign," Ford said. "At that point, football is over. I finally had some time to sit down and think. The day I didn't sign, the first day of signing day, I had to call Utah and Texas. It was a little bit chaotic." On December 23rd of 2019, Ford committed to the Longhorns, and the rest is Texas football history.
Let's go to the Speakeasy Lounge and bring in my main man, Jeff Ketchum. Good morning, Ketch. I'm going to pre-warn you, I'm in a very good mood.
I'm in a shitty mood.
Again?
Dude,
you started your week in a shitty mood.
I have a 10 o'clock. When we're done,
yeah,
I have a phone call. And it may end up with like both sides of the phone call cursing each other out. Like I'm at my wit's end on a situation, and I think someone else is on their wit's end on a situation, and I am counting down the minutes till we're done so I can make this phone call, because there might be a gigantic "and fuck you too" that gets muttered before we're done.
I'm here for it all, Ketch. I'm here for the chaos, the violence. So listen, don't let my good mood deter you from when you get off the phone. Like, I need you to switch back into killer mode. Like that Ketch who was like beating up kids in high school and stuff. Like I need you to go back to that guy. Don't let him get a sucker punch in. Like don't play to the crowd like you did before. And the guy got that punch in on you, and you always remember that. Hey, stay focused. Hey, Ketch. Just make sure there's a lot of slow singing and a lot of flower bringing, my man.
I'm telling you, I'm gassed up, man. You're getting me like as I've been sending emails.
Yeah.
And
people say I'm an instigator sometimes, Ketch, and all I want to say is I think he thinks you're a punk or she. I just want to say
he very well might.
Yeah.
And I kind of get that sense. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like I sent the email, the email I sent this guy sent me an email and he was like, and I'd like to hear back from you in less than 24 hours.
Oh.
And I emailed this dude in July about something and he never got back to me.
Oh, damn.
So it's like, well, look, and I'm about to curse. I'm about to drop an MF on the show.
Don't do that.
Yes, I'll get back to you within 24 hours if in return you can get back to me within 24 days the next time I ask for something from you.
Yeah.
Yes, I can do that. But you know what? 24 days. It's actually been a lot more than 24 days. So like, yeah. I need to woo-saw it out. It's okay. I called this guy's boss and let him know Mount St. Ketchum's about to blow. And like, just so you know.
Listen, man.
So I'm good.
Okay, good. Well, make sure they feel you. So how about
ask the question of how I'm doing without being prepared to get the answer.
But it said, don't ask the question if you don't want the answer. I asked the question. I wanted the answer. So let me ask you another question that's Texas Longhorn related and it shouldn't make you angry. So when I was thinking about this Ketch, and I was kind of wanted to get like your historical perspective, right? Because the scrimmage is going to be on Saturday, and you and I have kind of reported on a lot of different things, and it feels like there's kind of been a theme this scrimmage, which is kind of this training camp has kind of been the rise of the young players, and I'm just kind of curious. When it comes for like basically 2-year guys, guys who've been here on campus for 2 years, have you seen this much talent and this many young people kind of nipping at the heels of veterans? Like it seems like the young freshmen are using like one or two like 2-year guys. Have you seen it ever like this where there's so many young guys trying to get in?
Oh. The answer is probably no, although I will point to when Herman brought in his 2018 class, which was very highly rated across the country. A lot of DBs were getting on, that was a class that it felt like when they arrived, guys were getting on the field. But, I mean, Chad and I have talked about this on House Divided here on the channel this week, and I've written about it. And we've talked about it going back to last week. Just seems like a lot of freshmen all over the field. Arch, Baxter, Cook. We've even had Leona LaFowl this week is seemingly getting some run with second-team defense. And how much playing time might he get? Obviously, Anthony Hill, Malik Muhammad, Derek Williams. There are – and I don't feel like I'm done. Like I'm just pausing. So there are a lot of names that – I'm fascinated. Let me ask you this. I'm hesitating a little bit because I don't want to pretend like we've never seen a freshman class come in and been excited by it. And I think that Herman 2018 class had some of that. But I think the answer is that this is the most I can remember in a long time. How many freshmen just on the offense and defensive two deep do you think we'll see on the Monday of the first game, assuming that there is a depth chart?
The Monday of you talk about the home opener against Rice? Like
when the first depth chart comes out, how many freshmen do we think is on it?
On a two deep?
Yes.
Or get to the depth. Well, okay, let's see. Well, I know I'm going to write it down. I think CJ will be on there.
There's one.
I think Let's see. So wait, see, I know I feel like Malik Muhammad is trending in the right direction to be on there.
Absolutely.
So I'll put Malik down. Let me just go through my positions. I feel like I said CJ, Malik, anybody
Jonte
else?
Cook.
Jonte Cook for sure. That's 2. That's 3 right there. Let me hold on. Actually, I got my list right here. I mean, does Arch technically count? I mean, he'll be on the depth chart.
Do you think he will be on the 2 deep?
2 deep? No.
Okay. What about any offensive lineman?
No. I think Anthony Hill will be on it.
That's 4.
I definitely think that Derek Williams is going to be on there.
There's 5. What about Leona Lafau at linebacker?
I can see that. I mean, yeah. I mean, they don't have a lot of bodies there, and he's been playing well. So I can see Lafau being a guy.
He is working with the 2s. So, he didn't put that bumper on Jatavion Sanders last week and cause a fumble with the 3rd team. Like, he was getting some run. You got Derek. We said Derek Williams.
Derek Williams. Yes, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got 6 so far, and that's just freshmen. That's not even.
That's all we're talking about is true freshmen.
Yeah,
on a 2 deep. That's not insignificant. That's for the first game of the season. Billy Walton is making a push.
Yes,
to be on there as well. I don't know that we're going to see Billy Walton listed ahead of Jamon Tapp. But it's possible. I think Billy Walton's had a better camp, and kudos to him. I mean, it always seems like there is like a random lower recruited player that shows up and kind of flashes early on. He's certainly in that mix. I mean, there're just a lot of guys. Even a week ago, you had a true freshman playing left tackle in the scrimmage, and I don't know that we're necessarily going to see him on the 2 deep for the first game, but you're already seeing guys get reps. If only occasionally, it's still occurring. And I think it's an incredibly good sign that the return on this heavily ranked recruiting class is going to be really strong.
Yeah. I mean, someone's asked about receivers. We mentioned Jonte Cook. Does Niblett get in, you think, by any chance?
DeAndre Moore or Niblett. Both of them are essentially the backup wide receiver in the slot behind Jordan Whittington. And you don't necessarily know if there was an injury. Does that mean though would they play their best 3 at that point? Nayor, Mitchell, Worthy, or would they treat it like, I wonder if Worthy would go into the slot more in a world where Whittington misses a couple of games. I think you're not getting your best 3 or best 4 guys out there if you're having to put Moore or Niblett out there right now. But I think on the depth chart, I mean, they're the guys working in at that position.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about, and one of the things, I had in the war room last night, Ketch, that and staying with that thing, the same thing. I talked about a battle. I said it earlier, Ketch. I said if Arch versus Malik is the main event, I feel like Malik Muhammad versus Terrence Brooks is the co-main. And I said it's not because Brooks is not doing what he needs to do, because Brooks has been playing extremely well. It's just that Malik Muhammad has really caught like attention there. And what are your thoughts as far as like whether it's Muhammad or the DB room or anything to that effect? Because that seems like that's going to be something that potentially gets settled, within the next 48 hours.
There's a song that Joe Ely did about 30 years ago called Gallo del Cielo, right? The song's about cockfighting. And this one guy has got a rooster, and the rooster wins all of his cockfighting fights until he meets this one rooster in Mexico. And they have these 2 cocks have their fights, roosters, whatever we want to call them. And Gallo del Cielo is like on the verge of victory, a little bit like my fight in middle school that I was describing. Mm-hmm. And right as he's going in for like the big blow, the other rooster gets him first. And this gigantic battle among these 2 cocks that had been fighting each other and had won all of their previous fights. Someone had to win and someone had to lose. Terrence Brooks is a borderline 5-star prospect coming out of high school. And Malik Muhammad, similarly, borderline 5-star, depending on the service. We're talking about 2 national top 25 to top 50 national prospects in back-to-back years. This is what it looks like when you've got 2 guys at the same position that project to play on Sundays. These 2 guys should play on Sundays. And so it stands to reason that one of the best battles in camp is having 2 future NFL corners battling for the same spot. This is not quite the same thing that we see at other positions. It does exist. We see Jonte Cook, on the 2 deep at wide receiver. I think we all think a lot of him. But, you don't quite have that everywhere. That doesn't necessarily exist on defense outside of the secondary. We're not looking at the linebackers right now and thinking, oh, yeah, these are 2 – all the guys on the second team are future NFL guys. Like, we're not saying that yet. So I think it stands to reason that this is one of the more entertaining, probably the back and forths between these 2 guys making plays, probably of any position in camp. And so it's exciting because when Texas was actually winning championships and competing for them, this is what the roster looked like. It looks a lot more like, instead of default starters that never get pushed, you've got Terrence Brooks, who's got to be on point every day, or else there's another rooster that can fight that will take you out. And so, I think it's Steve Sarkisian's dream to have a Terrence Brooks, Malik Muhammad battle at every position.
Ketch, and this is it. And while I'm not comparing success, but I'm comparing aspirations, right? So this is what it looks like when Texas fans, when we talk about recruiting well and getting high ranking recruits. This is what it looks like when at the Georgias of the world, right, Ketch? This is what it looks like at the Alabamas of the world, or the Ohio States of the world. Like, to your point, where it's not just, well, somebody's got to play, but it's like, no, somebody who's really good is going to have to be on the bench and wait their turn, because there's a bunch of dudes who are here, and that's the kind of talent that's there. Like, is that fair when we look at it? Marcus is piled up. It's like, that's what it looks like at the big dog schools.
And there are other positions, I think, on this roster where that kind of competition is taking place, but it's not everywhere. But I think this may be the best example of it. And yes, this is what it looks like at Georgia, where like one guy will start. And, perfect example is if you go to the 2000, this is a perfect example. In 2005, Texas had 3 future NFL corners on that national championship team. So you had Aaron Ross, who wasn't even an every week starter because of the competition he was going up against. He ends up winning the Thorpe Award the next year, but you had Cedric Griffin on that defense, who was a 2nd-round pick of the Vikings and played a long time in the NFL. And then you had Terrell Brown. So I can't even remember. I think it would have been Ross and Brown who were alternating at corner, because Ced Griffin didn't come off the field very often back then. But for a lot of that season, Terrell Brown was ahead of Aaron Ross. And that's what it looked like in camp, on campus in practice. You had a future Thorpe Award winner and like a 3-4 year starter who played a long time with the 49ers. I mean, on any given day, you can walk off the field and feel like, damn, that dude had a better day than I did today. I think Terrence Brooks probably walks off on Saturday last week and thinks to himself, I don't know that I like Malik Muhammad getting a pick 6 today, and I didn't. And so what does that do? It raises the bar throughout the rest of camp. Monday, Terrence Brooks shows up on campus and ready for practice, and you better believe the seed is planted in his head. I got to get me a pick 6. I can't let my backup can't be getting shine over me.
Yeah.
or I'm not going to hold on to my job. Because if Sarkisian is stressing that it's a meritocracy and that they're going to play, and when you bring in a bunch of young freshmen, this is what you tell the locker room. Guys, we're going to play the best guys. Age ain't nothing but a number. And it is the best part of this program right now. Might not be what happens on the field this season. Maybe it will be. But you can see what Sarkisian's doing from a talent accumulation standpoint. And it may not be elite of the elite 1 through 85, but it's probably elite of the elite 1 through 60. I think Texas could probably take its top 60 guys and hang with anybody. I mean, they rank 5th in the country in super blue chips. They got experience on this team. I think they got a lot of guys they feel like are going to contribute. A guy like Trill Carter is their 5th defensive tackle right now, and he played 70% of the snaps last year for a decent Minnesota team. So I think that in another year or two, you're going to feel really good about your third team at Texas. That's what Alabama has, right? It's like, why can't Tommy Brockermeyer get off the third team? Well, it's like, because they got a lot of 5 stars, because they recruit really well. And if you aren't on your game at 100%, you're going to be playing behind somebody else. And, Texas hasn't been in a place where if Tommy Brockermeyer showed up, he's not anything other than a guy that jumps to the top of the depth chart, whether he's ready or not. We don't know whether Trevor Goosby's truly ready to be on the 2 deep. Probably not. But he was on the 2 deep at the practice last weekend on the scrimmage. And that's an example of where they still got a little bit of work to do. But by and large, this is why everyone is excited for this season. They can see the roster. They know how good the team should be.
No, I'm 100% with you, Ketch. And so one of the things I was thinking about too, going into this weekend, the scrimmage. So, it's kind of, Sark made it clear, Ketch, right, that this is going to be kind of like the depth chart scrimmage. Like at that point, Ketch, when the depth chart is set, you pretty much now you're a scout team person after this. Like, this is going to be your roles in all the practices. These people do this, you'll do that, and you'll contribute in this way. I was thinking about guys and wanted to get your thoughts too on this too, as we talk about it. Who are the danger zone guys? Like, who are the guys that are, we looked at you saying like, hey, this might be, that Eminem one shot kind of thing on Saturday. Like, if you don't make this thing, this opportunity comes around once in a lifetime. Like, who are the danger zone guys for you? The guys are.
I know I've got one right off the top.
Okay.
Malik Murphy. I just think Malik needs to have a day where our sources tell us after the scrimmage, Malik let it rip today. Like, Malik was the best looking quarterback today. Not that Arch looked bad, not that Quinn looked bad, but damn, Malik looked good. I think it'd do Malik a lot of good to put a marker down in the scrimmage, in a depth chart scrimmage, as Sarkisian has described it. Like, our backup quarterback looked like he could go in a pinch and be the first team quarterback and it not be an issue. So I think he doesn't need to save he's going to be the second team quarterback when the depth chart comes out. He'll be the first guy to come into the game against Rice when Quinn Ewers leaves the game, presumably somewhere in the third quarter. But, like, we're hearing Arch been a buzzword this week. And you and I know that when Arch wasn't a buzzword, let's say in the spring at times, certainly maybe the first week of camp, we didn't have people giving us fake Arch reports.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, yeah, no, Arch was good. And then we talked to another source and they're like, I don't know what that source was talking about, but like, I didn't even see any completed passes. We didn't have anybody faking it on the Arch side of things. So this week, since the scrimmage, to hear that he's continued to look as good as he's looked since he's arrived, Malik, let's just see a performance from Malik that has people buzzing. I think it'd be really good for him. I don't know that marker's been put down yet. Maybe it has. Maybe he's had a great practice in that vein, and it just didn't quite come to us and reported in that fashion.
There's no catch. There's no way. There's no. Let me just ask you this, because this is my belief. If Sark puts Arch as the number 2 quarterback on the depth chart, that's the signal to Malik that you can go ahead and enter the transfer portal whenever you want.
No doubt. And I don't believe that's going to happen. The question I have, Anwar, is it's middle of August.
Yeah.
What's the gap? Like, not depth chart wise. They're going to tell us that Malik's number 2 and that Arch is number 3. And that's the hierarchy. But behind the scenes, what's the conversation like in terms of the distance between the two? And if it's close, then what happens if and when someone's really needed? Who gets the call? How short is the leash for the guy that gets the call? And by what context? I just would like to see Malik be able to put his foot on the gas and recreate a little separation. There's enough buzz coming from Arch this week since the scrimmage that it feels like when you talk to people behind the scenes, they feel like there's a real battle going on there. Whereas I felt like 10 days ago, it felt like Arch and Malik were this far apart. Now it kind of just feels like they're this far apart. And is it closing, or can Malik do something that just stops the closing a little bit? Because Arch Manning's kind of an important guy in the program. He's more important to Steve Sarkisian than Malik Murphy is, period. It ain't about fair business. It's show business. And Arch Manning can sneeze wrong, and it's an ESPN.com headline. So how he develops Arch, no one will ever think twice if Malik Murphy transfers and Arch Manning is a great player. It will be on Steve Sarkisian's tombstone. Here lies Steve Sarkisian, once quarterback coach for Arch Manning. Like, it's that big of a deal. So I'm convinced Malik needs to have some distance. He needs to have distance now. He needs to have distance in the middle of the season. He needs to have distance at the end of the season. It would behoove him in spring workouts next year to have some distance, because the moment Arch Manning makes it really close,
yeah,
it is what it is. Like, I love Malik Murphy. I would love to see the Malik Murphy dream come true. I got no extra skin in the game for Arch Manning versus Malik Murphy. In fact, all things being equal, I feel like we've had a chance to get to know Malik better. So I probably like Malik more because there's just been more of him given to us during recruiting. And he's just such a good dude. Everybody likes him. So this isn't like me giving some crazy opinion because I'm all in for Arch. I just like to see Texas win for the business. You could quarterback. I don't care. I mean, really. Dustin McComas could come in and quarterback. I don't care. Yeah. Just win 10 games and, like, let's have some fun for a change. But with the quarterback position, we can't pretend like the Arch dynamic isn't the elephant in the room. And I think Malik knows that. Malik's just – and I'm not saying Malik's had a bad camp. I'm saying I would like to see Malik have a great scrimmage tomorrow so that he can put a flag up and say, that's me. I can do that. And coach, if you need me in the second quarter against Alabama, don't even trip. I got this. But I don't know that he's quite had that performance. Now, Arch Manning is kind of putting some baby performances together. Malik Murphy's a guy for me that tomorrow could use a really good day.
Now, how much of this, Ketch, because, you know, coaches, when they get to the podium, there's a lot of head gaming that goes on. Some of it's to spark, you know, it can continue the momentum for others, and some of it's to spark other people, right? The Arch thing, Sark knows the moment he says the word Arch, it's on ESPN, right? He's smart enough to know that. Like, him saying Charles Wright doesn't get on the scroll, like, you know.
Yeah. They'll break into Monday Night Football like the Lennon assassination if he were to say Arch Manning's name. Yes, it would. Oh, guys, got to report something to you.
Yes.
Steve Sarkisian has just said Arch Manning's name in conjunction with the Texas quarterback position. Resume the game.
Correct. So he's smart enough to know when he says Arch is doing well and he's really coming on, he understands that everyone's going to go crazy, that's throwing the blood in the water, whatever the case may be. So here, the question is, he's smart enough to know what the reaction is going to be. Did he do that because he just was trying to light a fire under Malik and he wanted Malik to come out this week and kick ass, or is he trying to kind of pass it the baton? Because there's a part of me that believes he was just doing that to just as a head game a little bit to say, all right, I want to see if Malik comes out and really steps it up a little bit this week. I just want to get your thought on is the Jedi mind trick portion of it.
I always say there are no accidents. So the benefit of Arch playing well is that Sarkisian gets to say out loud that Arch is playing well. Now, if he doesn't, again, there are no accidents. He would have his reasons not to. Whether it was unintended or intended, one of the byproducts and consequences of what you just referenced is that Malik will have heard that. He'll know. And Malik is in there watching film too. So deep down, those guys know what are your completion percentages every day in practice, where are you putting the ball, what mental mistakes are you making, and how do I compare against the other guy? So, yeah, I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I'm just saying that I'm aware of. There hasn't been a day yet in practice through 2.5 weeks and going into the biggest scrimmage of the year where someone has told us coming out of a day of practice, best player at quarterback today was Malik Murphy. Or and even not even that. Like Arch looked great today, but you know what? Malik was kind of killing it too. We haven't even quite had that. So however good he's been, he hasn't been quite good enough on any given day where we've talked to sources where he's the first or second name out the box. And Arch was able to do that on Saturday. Quinn struggled a little bit here and there. I know Sark came out and said, I told this to Chad the other day. Sark came out earlier this week when talking about the scrimmage and was like, yeah, Quinn had a good day in the red zone and in goal line work. If I come to you and go, oh, and you said, hey, Ketch, you watch the show today? And I was like, yeah. And you're like, what'd you think about it? And I was like, you were really good for the last 30 minutes. So there was a bigger part of Saturday's scrimmage that when talking about Quinn and how well he played didn't include all of the other stuff. It was Sarkisian specifically referenced the areas where, to be fair, where Quinn did have success on Saturday. They did well in the red zone work. I think he threw a couple of touchdown passes. We didn't hear about any long bombs to Jonte Cook. Honestly, nobody even mentioned A.D. Mitchell on Saturday, which was like the first time all off-season where people haven't been, A.D. Mitchell is a football playing god. It was kind of noticeable that on the scrimmage, none of the big receivers came away with, oh, man, that dude tore it up. It's kind of a quiet day. Does the offense just strike back in general tomorrow, Anwar? And if they don't, is that the purest sign of this defense might actually be really good and we might be underrating what they have?
I mean, look, if you are the offense and you have pride, and by the way, Jaron Thompson spoke this week, and one of the things that Jaron Thompson had said when he asked about the scrimmage, he's like, did you guys win? He's like, oh yeah, right? And he's like, and basically Jaron painted a picture that, hey, they pretty much have been working that offense throughout training camp. Like they've been getting at those guys. So that gets back. Like everyone watches these videos, it gets back to someone. And if you are the offense and all you've heard all week long, Ketch, is that, man, defense got with you. Like, man, Barron Sorrell, he was in the backfield at all times. And Anthony Hill, he was being really disruptive force. And they felt a little bit of Ethan Burke and some of these, and Anthony Collins, like, whoa, look at him. Like, look at this rejuvenation of Anthony Collins. Man, they got freshmen doing pick sixes, man. Malik Muhammad, man, he got himself some love. And you're hearing all that. If you're the offense, like, one, you're going to want to retaliate. But if you're the defense, to your point, Ketch, you keep that momentum up and you have another good day, that like the way that they had last week. To your point, now all of a sudden you're saying, like, damn, when people start asking us questions, Ketch, about can this defense be ranked in the top 25 or things to that, like, you start moving a little bit closer. You start answering a little bit more of those questions. And you kind of, when we've talked about giving Steve Sarkisian the benefit of the doubt in recruiting, now that starts to carry over on the defensive side. Because remember last year, we were like, man, there's DeMarvion Overshawn and who else? Like, who else is at the linebacker position? And all of a sudden, Jalen Ford. And Ketch, you and I remember we covered this where they were looking for new linebackers. And we were like wondering, like, okay, they didn't get any. And Sark said at one point, we feel pretty good about the linebacker position. You're like, you feel good about the linebacker position? Why? Jalen Ford happens. And so all of a sudden, when he starts saying, I feel good about it, Ethan Burke, you'll say to yourself, oh, snap. Okay, let's look and see what he says about Ethan Burke. When he tells you, I feel good about Alfred Collins, you'll say, oh, snap. Like, so this becomes, I think, a big weekend for the defense to keep a lot of that momentum going and really kind of be one of those, like, oh, well, they just continue to check the boxes.
I was watching Hard Knocks, I think episode 2 a couple of days ago with the Jets.
Oh, yeah, that just came out. I missed it. Okay.
And there's a moment in there where in practice, Aaron Rodgers throws one of those Aaron Rodgers throws.
Yeah.
He throws, you see the players react to how crazy of a throw it was. And like guys are running around. You know that meme where the guy's doing like this and everything? It was like that. People were like losing their minds. And then they're watching it on video, the defense.
Yeah.
And the defensive coordinator's basically telling them, he goes, that's our guy. He's like, we're going to be in every game we play this year at a minimum. And he's like, that dude's on our team. And I think that if the defense does again on Saturday what they did last Saturday, I think if you're Steve Sarkisian, AJ Milwee, the assistant coaches on offense, you go into the locker room and review of that film and you go, guys, we're good. We got guys that are going to play on Sunday. We think our skill positions are as good as anybody in the country. And that defense, that's our defense. What they're doing to you, they're going to do to other people. And if we do our job with that group, we're going to win a lot of games. And consequently, I do think the defense, Pete Kwiatkowski, on a day where the offense has a really good day, he can show Quinn Ewers making a throw or A.D. Mitchell making a big catch and go, guys, this is what's on the other side of the ball for us. These dudes, you know how good they are. They're going to score points. If we do our job, we can win a lot of games. And that Texas has two sides of the ball right now that are so talented, and that the defense, if I had to say it, I've heard more good things about the defense than the offense in 2.5 weeks. And I feel like we know that the offense is going to be really good.
Yes.
If we get to the Rice game and Texas scores 20,
oh, geez.
We'll do the show where we say the signs were there.
Yeah.
The defense kept winning scrimmages. We felt like, well, maybe this isn't telling us that the defense is really good and maybe the offense isn't that good and we should have known. That's happened to us before. There have been times where the defenses looked great. I can remember a couple of years ago where I had a guy who's currently playing in the NFL for Texas come up to me and go, that's the best looking defensive line. This was 2 seasons ago. That's the best looking defensive line that we've had since like our national championship year. And they weren't any good. And it turned out that the offensive line wasn't good. And so it looked like the defensive line was incredible because they're going up against these sorry players. But that's not happening. That's not happening right now. Don't we know that the offense is going to be good? Is there any way that group is not a good offense?
It's impossible. It would seemingly be impossible that this is not a good offense.
So it stands to reason that the defense is actually pretty damn good because every day they more than hold their own. Attaboy Pete Kwiatkowski. Attaboy the position coaches, the players. That suggests real development and growth on that side of the ball. On a side of the ball that I've got some questions about. And that it doesn't seem like I'm hearing a lot of people talk about the questions that I have, would seem to be an indication that there's answers to those questions. I can't wait to find out what it looks like.
Ketch, if we had to hand out a comeback player of the year award, do we give this to Alfred Collins? And you know, and we start talking about like Saturday, because one of the things is we've heard a lot about him. And Ketch, you know, they talk about consistency with Alfred Collins a lot. And he played well, but this to me is like, hey, Alfred, one more. You do this one more time, and it doesn't mean you let up. But now all of a sudden you go from being on the outside where they just were looking at you like, man, we don't know if that guy's ever going to put it together, to the person where you're in the two deep, playing really well. And Alfred Collins, Ketch, what's crazy about it, he looks like an NFL player. Like that's the fascinating thing about Alfred Collins. So is he kind of like the comeback player of the year or of the offseason so far?
Not for me.
Okay.
Because Jalen Catalon to me is, if he's the starting safety for Texas and is able to play a strong 12 games, he would at that point overcome so much physically. Because I can't tell you today whether or not Jalen. Someone in practice the other day said, I think we were talking about Brian Jones the other day, like yesterday, and the comment came up that he can't wait to see Jalen Catalon hit somebody. And like one of the players said that he had heard one of the players say that. And I was like, you know, part of Jalen Catalon's problem is that in the past, he's been hitting guys, and like that's how you get shoulder issues and stuff. So, but to the larger point about Alfred Collins, I need to see it in games, because Alex Dunlap mentioned this week, I think he played something like 35% of the defensive snaps last year. That's a lot. Texas didn't have a defensive tackle last year, I don't think, either Coburn or Ajomo. And by the way, I hope Moro Ajomo is okay. I hadn't seen the latest on that, but kind of a scary situation when I saw what would have been put on our Slack channel last night.
Says he's been moving his extremities, so that part's.
And he's been having a great camp too. So, you know, really disappointing. I hope, again, everything's okay. I hope he's able to play football, and I hope he's able to live a great life, all of these things. But he really been playing well. I don't think Texas had a defensive lineman last year, defensive tackle, that played more than 45% of the defensive snaps. Think about Trill Carter, played 70% of the snaps at Minnesota. So they were getting like top two guys are in the mid-40s, next two guys were in the mid-30s, and then the fifth and sixth string guys were like above 25%. So Alfred Collins is going to play a lot this year, but the overall number of percentage of snaps that he plays from game to game, he might play an extra like 5 or 6 snaps per game this season than he did a year ago. So he was already playing a lot. The difference, what we're hearing about him in camp is he's just making plays. That's what he didn't do a year ago in games. If the games come on and he's making plays, then the light switch will have come on, and you will see that guy play in the NFL. I still, when a guy's as old as he is, he's getting a little bit of the David Benda factor from me. I've seen you play for years now, and I feel like I know what you can't do based on what you've showed so far. To reinvent yourself is something that doesn't happen a lot. It's almost like he gets the ugly duckling becomes a swan award. There's like an award that has to be created for Alfred Collins when you go from a guy that people, I don't want to say lost hope with, but I think there's almost some resignation from a lot of Texas fans that like, he's just never going to be great for us.
No.
And if he does, he's a success story that in future years will point to guys and say, okay, highly recruited, hasn't done it yet. It's year 4 or 5, but all of a sudden he's showing up in every practice report. Maybe this is Alfred Collins 2.0. And like I said, I think Alfred Collins is turning himself into a potential verb. And I think it's a good verb. You're pulling an Alfred Collins. There are worse things than you can do than dominate in your final year in college.
Yeah, 100%. So let me do a couple because I got a Sark at 11 o'clock. So we'll wrap this up soon. Is it for you, Ketch, when we think about the running back battle, we talked so much in the spring about Jaden Blue, and I don't think you were ever really sold on that narrative. I think you always have been really, really consistent. I will say I think you have been really consistent on CJ Baxter at some point being at least in the 2 deep. This is there anything for you for danger zone like this? Could Jaden Blue pull this one out, or is CJ Baxter kind of just in the driver's seat as far as you're concerned?
I don't know that there's a whole lot Jaden Blue could rush for 300 yards in the scrimmage, and that might be like, holy crap, we maybe need to make sure we know what we're doing with Blue, because did you see that? But barring a Jamal Charles, Ricky Williams, Deontay Foreman, I don't know. Bijan, I don't even want to say Bijan because nobody's going to be Bijan, but barring a Herculean next few practices, I think we know that Baxter and Brooks are really like a co-1A, 1B at the running back position. Jonathan Brooks will be the starting running back for Texas, but CJ Baxter will play a lot with the first team. Like he will be on the field, I think, before the midpoint of the first quarter. He may be the first true freshman. It might be either him or Jonte Cook that steps on the field in an offense or defensive role for this program.
Hey, okay, perfect. All right, Ketch. I think that's about it for me, though. Did you have fun?
I did. I got to get my pistol. And I'm not mad anymore. So maybe that's good.
Yeah. No, you want me to get you mad? You want me to gas you up? You want me to get you ticked off?
Do that.
I can instigate it.
I have not checked my email. Hold on. Let me see if old boy emailed me back.
Yeah, he might. No, don't lose that. Don't lose that.
No, he hadn't emailed me back yet. I'm telling you, he said something in the last email to me. I fired one back off to him. It is what it is.
Dude, you had a radio show where the intro music was "Hit 'Em Up." There's no way I'm expecting you to kumbaya this thing. Like, I need you to get back into catch mode. Don't let this guy punk you, man.
Oh,
like, don't let this guy punk you, dog.
The thing is, if I gave any details at all,
yeah,
it's a riddle that could probably be. I know this. Blake would know immediately. I think it could be figured out. So I'm not saying anything out loud.
Hey, Cotton's trying to work on you, Ketch, in the chats.
Who is?
Cotton, the last one. I'll put it up for you, Ketch.
Hey, you need to know if you're talking that mess in the chat. We have a converted. He's in. He's part of the religion now. You getting up at 6:30 on Saturday to watch a little footy tomorrow?
Let's not talk about it. But I'll be up, and then my son likes Man City, so he wants to wake up on Sunday at 8 o'clock. So we got.
That crushes my soul to hear that.
An FC on Saturday night, and I think the Miami games on Saturday night as well. So we're watching all that. So yeah, I'm all into it. I don't want to bore everybody and have everyone leave the chat when we start talking.
It's okay. The show's ending. sorry you guys missed the last 15 seconds.
So yes, of Interpol. But yes, we got to watch Interpol on Saturday. Inter Miami rather on Saturday night. So all right, listen, Jeff Ketchum, make sure you catch him. I don't know what mood he's going to be in at noon, but him and Chad go on at noon to 3 for a House Divided. So make sure you catch that one. That's always a fun, entertaining show. They always got good guests that I wish I could book, but they go later in the afternoon. They can't go in the morning, so I end up being jealous at all times. And then Rodcast with Rod Babers from 3 to 5 p.m. Rod Babers will be on. And don't forget that the Outsiders, there will be Outsiders, will be upcoming on Wednesday night with Chad Mock and all those guys who are Chance Mock and all those guys, that do a fabulous job on that one. So don't forget that one on a Wednesday night. I've got to go from Cedar Park. Ketch understands how that thing could get from Cedar Park down into UT, and hope that there's no traffic or accidents along the way. So you guys, because it just that happens, man. You're there on Anderson Mill, and then you get on 35, 183 and 35. You just never know.
Do you feel like you know the back roads in a world where in a world where like major accident on a major road that you would otherwise use?
I mean, Loop 1, if I got any kind of pre-warning, and then outside of that, there is a back way that I know I can take. What is that, like bingo place off of off of 183? Yeah. I know if I go past the bingo place and make a right, I know there's a way for me to get down to the university that way. I've done that before. Anything past that, though, once I get to the loop, once I get to 35, then I'm screwed. I don't know what else to do. There's another way. There's another way to Catch. If I go, instead of going on 35, if I go left, and there's another way, there's a back way I can take that way.
Next time we have lunch, remind me, give you a 5-minute report on all my secret shortcuts from 30 plus years of driving around in Austin.
I need them all going down there.
I've got some good ones that Waze doesn't know about. Waze take research and then in 7 miles. I know Waze what you don't know. I am anticipating the bad stuff. I got to get downtown in 30 minutes from Cedar Park, no matter what. I know all the back ways.
I need that. One time I was going from, I'm going to get in trouble. One time, you remember they used to have satellite camps, Ketch?
Mm-hmm.
Remember when satellite camps were going to just reinvent all of recruiting?
Yeah.
Remember the hubbub of all that crap? You talk about waste of energy. Satellite camps are waste of energy. So they had one in Houston. And what's that university? What's the other university that's next to the University of Houston? What's that one called? It's like a historically black school, but it's like Houston's on one side, and then there's another one on the other side. I forget what that one's called. So anyway, Waze had me. I stayed in a hotel, and it took me through the back way to get to this school. Dude, it was I
have no comment.
There was what do you call it? Like a streetwalker or whatever, like a woman who sells herself, literally in the street, Texas Southern, I think it was, would not get out of it was walking in the street, and she had ashy ankles, so she was licking her hands and rubbing down her ankles. I've got burnt houses, there's glass everywhere. I'm oh my God, I'm about to get killed in Houston. I was I never liked Waze after that.
The funny thing is, my directions, I'm driving you through the richest neighborhoods in Austin. So
okay.
You're house watching. You're is that where McConaughey lives? This is nice.
Yeah, well, Waze doesn't always do that, something like that. So okay. On that note, Ketch, go kick ass. Don't be a punk. And we will see you back here on Monday. Remember what I always say, live each day like it's your last. One day it will be. Go kick ass, Ketch.